If your marketing philosophy, even a tiny hidden part of it, still holds on to the phrase, "the customer is always right," I need you to listen very closely. You're not just being polite, you're making a catastrophic mistake. That one simple best practice is costing you your best customers, your most profitable sales, and frankly, your sanity. It's the single most pervasive, most accepted, and most damaging piece of business advice ever uttered. And the hilarious, slightly dark secret is that it's not a best practice at all. It's a prank, a century-old April Fool's joke that the entire world of commerce fell for, and we've been paying the price ever since. Think about it. Who does the phrase, "the customer is always right," actually benefit? Not the business, not the employees. It exclusively benefits the person who is, at that moment, the customer. It's a get-out-of-jail-free card for bad behavior, a blank check for unreasonable demands, and a sledgehammer to your authority. You have to wonder if the phrase was invented by a particularly clever customer. The credit for this disastrous idea is usually given to pioneering retailers like Harry Gordon Selfridge or Marshall Field around the turn of the 20th century. And in their context, it was revolutionary. At a time when caveat emptor, let the buyer beware, was the law of the land, promising a customer-centric experience was a massive differentiator. It was a brilliant marketing move for its time. But the world has changed. Your customers are more informed, more demanding, and more connected than Mr. Selfridge could have ever imagined. Sticking to his 1909 playbook is like trying to win a drone race. The original intent was to empower the customer, to make them feel safe. The modern result is that you've created a monster. You've handed over the keys to your entire operation to the least qualified person. The joke is that we, the marketers, the salespeople, the creators, took this slogan and carved it into stone tablets. We built entire customer service departments around it. We trained our teams to nod and smile and apologize, even when the customer was being objectively, spectacularly, hilariously wrong. We voluntarily gave up our power, our expertise, and our position as guides. So today, we're going to stop falling for the prank. We're going to deconstruct the 3 specific ways this best practice is dismantling your business from the inside out. And then I'm going to give you the replacement, the new frame. The one that puts you back in control, attracts the best clients, and makes your work feel less like a hostage negotiation. First, let's talk about the magnetic power of this phrase. Unfortunately, it only attracts one kind of metal: junk. Believing the customer is always right is a homing beacon for the absolute worst customers. You know who I'm talking about. The 10% of customers who take up 90% of your time. The ones who nitpick every detail, demand endless revisions, and threaten bad reviews to get a discount. These people love the phrase, "the customer is always right," because it validates their entire worldview. It's their mantra. It's the banner they wave as they storm your castle. When your foundational philosophy is one of total deference, you have no filter. You can't. You have created an environment where the most demanding, least reasonable people thrive. Meanwhile, your ideal customers, the A-listers, are quietly put off by this. High-quality clients, the ones with real problems and healthy budgets, aren't looking for a servant. They're looking for an expert. When they see a business that bends over backwards for every whim and complaint, they don't see great service. They see a lack of confidence. They see a business that might be desperate. Think of it like a restaurant. One restaurant has a sign that says, "the customer is always right. We'll make anything you want." The restaurant next door is run by a world-class chef. No substitutions. Which one can charge $500 for a tasting menu? Which one attracts foodies and connoisseurs? And which one attracts people who want to argue about the amount of ice in their soda? By surrendering your authority at the door, you are actively repelling the very people you want to work with and laying out a red carpet for the people who will drain your energy, your resources, and your profits. Your best practice is actually a customer sourcing system designed to deliver the worst possible leads directly to your inbox. It's a perfect system for failure. The second, and perhaps more insidious, way this philosophy guts your business is by destroying your positioning. It turns you from a trusted advisor into a mere order taker. Positioning is everything. It's the mental real estate you occupy in your customer's mind. Are you the cheap option, the fast option? Or are you the expert, the specialist, the only real choice? When a customer comes to you with a bad idea, and they will, the customer is always right playbook forces you into a corner. It's a schizophrenic dance that makes you look weak and incompetent. Let's say you're a web designer. A client insists on a bright yellow background with spinning GIFs and Comic Sans font because they saw it on their nephew's GeoCities page from 1998. The order taker says, "Okay, you're the boss." They cash the check, build the monstrosity, and when it inevitably fails, the client blames them anyway. The expert says, "I understand why you're drawn to that high-energy look. In my experience, For your specific goal, a cleaner, more modern aesthetic has proven to increase trust and generate leads by over 200%. See the difference? The first one abdicates all responsibility. The second one takes control. It validates the customer's feeling but dismisses their terrible solution, offering a curated set of choices. If the customer is always right, you are, by definition, a commodity. You're a pair of hands. You can be easily replaced by any other pair of hands that costs a little less. An expert, a guide, cannot be easily replaced. You can't charge a premium for being a yes man. You can only charge a premium for your judgment, your taste, and your expertise. The third and final nail in the coffin is what this philosophy does to your product or service itself. If you genuinely try to build your business on this idea, you will inevitably create a Frankenstein's monster. Your business, your product, your service, it needs a coherent vision. It needs to stand for something. And just as importantly, it needs to stand against something. When you operate under the customer is always right model, you start making concessions. A difficult customer wants a feature you don't offer. To avoid a conflict, you say, okay, and you tack it on. You end up with feature bloat in your software. Your streamlined service becomes a confusing menu of 100 different options. You are no longer leading, you are reacting. The great irony is that in trying to please everyone, you end up pleasing no one. You destroyed your own work because you were too afraid to say no. So, if the customer is always right, is the April Fool's joke we've all fallen for. What do we replace it with? What's the new model? It's simple, and it's powerful. The new frame is this. My job is to lead my customer to the right outcome. This changes everything. It redefines your role from passive servant to active guide. This doesn't mean you're arrogant or that you don't listen. You're listening for the problem behind their proposed solution. You're the doctor, and they're the patient describing symptoms. So how do you actually do this? Let's get practical. There are 3 core techniques to implementing this new frame. The first is what I call the expert frame. You must establish your authority. Banish phrases like, what do you think? Or whatever you'd like. Replace them with confident, guiding language like, here's how we're going to approach this. Or, we have a proven process for this. This language positions you as the expert from the outset. You are not asking for permission. You are confidently laying out the plan. You are the tour guide in a foreign land. They don't know the territory, but you do. The second technique is choice architecture. A novice asks an open-ended question like, so what do you want to do? This invites chaos. An expert never asks an open-ended question when a structured choice will do. Okay, based on our goal, we have 2 excellent options. Option A, the faster route, or option B, the methodical approach. Which of those 2 paths feels like a better fit for you right now? Look at what you just did. You retained complete control. You eliminated all the bad possibilities. And you empowered the customer by giving them the final say. That's the sweet spot. The third technique is the benevolent gatekeeper. A crucial part of being an expert is knowing when to say no. You have to say no to bad ideas, scope creep, and most importantly, no to bad fit clients. When a client asks for a bad idea, you say, to protect you from that risk, I'd strongly recommend we stick with the proven process. You're not saying no to them. You're saying yes to their success. When it comes to firing a toxic client, you frame it as a matter of fit. To ensure you get the result you deserve, I think you'd be better served by a firm that specializes in their style. You're not firing them, you're gracefully bowing out. It is polite, professional, and non-negotiable. You are the gatekeeper of your own business, and you decide who gets to come inside. Perhaps the greatest practitioner of this was Steve Jobs. He had a quote that should be etched onto the desk of every entrepreneur. People don't know what they want until you show it to them. He didn't use focus groups to design the iPhone. They would have asked for a physical keyboard, a replaceable battery. They would have described a slightly better BlackBerry. They would have missed the future entirely. Jobs understood that his job was not to be an order taker. His job was to have a vision. He said no 1,000 times for every yes. He built the most valuable company in the world by systematically rejecting the #1 best practice in business. He knew his job wasn't to give people what they said they wanted. So it's time to stop being the punchline. The phrase, the customer is always right, is a relic. It's a permission slip for you to be lazy, to stop leading, to stop having a vision. Your new frame is simple. My job is to lead my customer to the right outcome. Embrace your role as the expert. Architect their choices. Be the benevolent gatekeeper of your business. You move from being a reactive servant to a proactive guide. You start attracting clients who respect you, who listen to you, and who are a joy to work with. The next time you hear someone say, well, the customer is always right, just give a little smile, a knowing smile. The kind of smile a chess player makes when they see the whole board. Now, if you want to learn the 3 specific phrases you can use to say no to a client request so gracefully that they actually thank you for it, then you should probably click the video on your screen right now.